That is the reality. It's so insane. Okay? It's so incredibly insane that is what's going on. And yet we still talk about like what Jonathan Greenblatt has decided is the feeling of Jews overall. You know, we have to place that. We have to weigh that. Here is anti-racist ADL CEO laments rising intermarriage rate in the online arena. Some of it is ego wanting to outgrow you. That for sure is a part of it too. Wait, I'm in PSL because Mike, Hasan, and a few others encouraged me to get active. Thank you for that as well. Yeah. My favorite Cuomo moment. Okay, that's from Cumtown. Check out early highlights of Greenblatt's New York Times interview. Hopefully they rake him over the coals, but I doubt it. Yeah, we'll start off with my op. My op, Jonathan, was on the New York Times interview. Some people warned me about this ahead of time. I don't even know how you guys knew that was coming. But if you recall, I talked about it briefly. But I was definitely a little bit worried that the New York Times interview with Jonathan Greenblatt, he was just going to be like, why are you guys platforming Hasan? He's the worst. Seemingly he doesn't do that because I haven't seen anyone mention it. I haven't actually seen most of the quotes, but they're not even like raking him over the coals per se. I just need you to understand like the criticism that is launched towards Jonathan Greenblatt in this moment is actually far less than what he deserves. And this is just a way to try and rehabilitate his image, I think, because he is still supposed to be like the most esteemed anti-Semitism combating institution in the country. And because he's dropped the ball so spectacularly in broad daylight, in real time, in a way that like even like liberal Zionists are frustrated with, that he has to like go back and bring a veneer of credibility to the ADL as an institution. And this is the only way he can do this. You know, he's gonna have to pay the piper, basically, where he will take it on the chin a little bit, but ultimately this is to rehabilitate not only his image but the image of the ADL as well, so that they can be more effective in cynical smears of anti-Semitism against anti-Zionists like myself and many others, because they're clearly way more predisposed with combating anti-Zionist sentiment, anti-Israel sentiment than they are about like actual anti-Semitism. So let's take a look.
Just committed to saying we will do what we can to prevent Jewish self-determination in their homeland. Anti-Zionism is an ideology of nihilism, Lulu, which would literally seek to not just delegitimize, but eliminate the Jewish state. And that's very problematic.
So you have equated anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism.
It is.
And I will say that in preparation for this conversation, I talked to a lot of different people. And one of the things I heard is that anti-Zionism for them is a desire to have the rights of Palestinians be equal to the rights of Jews in Israel.
Yes. Cook. Wow. Okay. That's not bad. From the New York Times. Let's see where this goes. Great. Anti-Zionism takes many different forms, but first and foremost, it is about the humanity of Palestinians. Okay. Something that conversations like the Jewish state, like whenever you talk about Israel as the Jewish state or a Jewish ethno state, you're literally dehumanizing the Palestinians that live there in real time, and you're basically engaging in incredibly reactionary, incredibly racist conversations that are angled as though these are genuine concerns of Jewish safety. Okay, that's what this is. It's just because of the ADL and many other like fake Jewish advocacy groups that are simply invested in advocacy for Israel, but masquerade as Jewish advocacy groups. They've been able to so successfully change this conversation. They've been able to so successfully couch incredibly racist, agitative propaganda as though this is a serious, a serious fear that Jewish people have. Okay, that's it. Because that's all it is. Because at its most base, when you talk about anti-Zionism, like one person, one vote, equal representation for all Palestinians, all non-Jews living in the occupied territories, a lot of people, even liberal Zionists, will be like, well, they would us all if they had, the right to vote, which is literally the same thing that people said about black people in the Jim Crow South. Like, oh, we can't give black people the right to vote because they'll just kill all of us. And it's like, dog, how can we, on the one hand, look at these quote unquote civil rights organizations like the ADL making this kind of like incredibly racist argument while simultaneously having to like listen to them as like serious arbiters of what is and isn't acceptable speech in public. Okay? It's so crazy.
And the Palestinian territories, the idea of sort of, I guess, the one state solution, if you will. Is that definition of anti-Zionism to you anti-Semitic?
Well, look, if you believe that only Jewish people don't have the right to self-determination, that's anti-Semitic because it's holding out Jews to a double standard you don't accord to other people. So, Bro dingus. Jews live all around the world. That's why even as an ethno-religion, okay, it's unique in that regard, right? Because most people are they just have an ethnicity and then they have a religion. Judaism is an ethno-religion, okay? But the reason why there are Jews from all different places on the planet is because there are just Jewish people that come from different sub-ethnic backgrounds, like subgroups. There are Arab Jews, there are Spanish Jews, there is Western European Jews and Eastern European Jews. You know, like you can't just say like self-determination for Jews for the Jewish homeland when it's a project that requires the ethnic cleansing and displacement of the indigenous population there. And on top of that, you got Ethiopian Jews, you got Jews in Uganda, bro. You got Chinese Jews, there's Jews everywhere, you know? And it's just like, oh, there's just this one area that they can all go to and congregate. And that area requires it to be like a Jewish ethno state, okay? A Jewish ethno state. Then all of a sudden, you're basically doing, you're doing, oh, what the hell? Little F. That was quick. We're back. I don't know what happened, but we're back. It's not a big deal, right? I mean, it was just, what the hell? Yeah. Spam 2's in the chat if you see this. We're doing a test. Spam 2's in the chat. Okay, there's a couple seconds. It's fine. It's not the end of the world. Okay. It's not the end of the world. All right. Ghost of Spectrum coming back to haunt you. Yeah, it's a couple seconds of delay. It's fine. What is this? Let's continue. You believe my definition of Zionism, which is really not my definition. It's widely accepted. It's peculiar to me how anti-Zionism isn't the opposite of that. How people choose to interpret it.
Bro. You can't just say it's like Jewish self-determination. It's like saying white self-determination. Okay? There's Jews everywhere, just like there's white people everywhere. Okay? Oh, I don't get it. Like, I just want white self-determination. Why can't I do a homeland for whites? Okay? I don't get it. Everybody else has a homeland. Why can't we have a homeland for whites? It's the same shit. Like, regardless of the history of marginalization and pogroms and even the Holocaust that Jews have withstood historically, Jews in Israel are the dominant group. Like, it is the supremacist group in Israel. So when you make this argument, it's no different than a majority white country talking about how we got to get rid of the non-whites. And that shit's happening right now in the United States of America. That's like a real point of conversation at this very moment. That's a real thing that we have to combat here in the United States of America. Okay? And that's a real thing that has happened in other countries historically, like Rhodesia. Okay? Other countries have historically done this exact same argument, right? They don't obviously exist anymore thank God. But that is the same argument. And I hate that, like, we have to entertain this. Like, I hate that, like, woke institutions or liberal institutions, like, quote unquote, progressive institutions, entertain this, like, very clearly supremacist, reactionary, right-wing ideology, this fascist ideology, you know? We recognize that kind of language here in the United States of America as fascist. We try to actively combat this language, the permission structure basically expanding so that this kind of language is, like, appropriate to use in broad daylight. Unfortunately, in spite of people's pushback, it still doesn't matter. It's still popping off, especially in places like Twitter, right? And yet you have a person who is responsible for a civil rights organization in air quotes, saying this kind of stuff. It's crazy.
Embellish it, to sort of dress it up as something other than what it is. But the reality is, if you believe how I laid out Zionism, then anti-Zionism.
You are oversimplifying this. Israel is a multi-ethnic society that is forced to identify as one ethnicity to counter the Palestinians, yet they are racist to each other. What? Yeah, I know. What do you mean? I am oversimplifying it because I'm trying to explain it to people. What? He's noticeably avoiding discussion of self-determination of the Palestinian people or how the self-determination of the Jewish people insists on the suppression of it. Exactly. The entire Zionist project relies on suppressing the self-determination of Palestinians, allowing the Palestinians to have sovereignty. That's what it is. The entire Israeli project revolves around this. The entire Zionist project revolves around this.
And it was pretty simple.
I think the challenge is if someone...
Under modern international law and structures, all nations have a right to self-determination. That is, they have the right to govern themselves. They do not have the right to displace others to achieve it. Yeah. Except this has been a problem from the start because this original movement was around Palestinians and their self-determination outside of, existing under the rule of colonial powers, whether it be the Ottoman Empire or whether it be the British, right? But at that same time, once the British Empire took over British Mandate Palestine, they basically engaged in a settler colonial operation by sending as many Jewish people to this area as they possibly could. This is Zionism. This is how Zionism started. And they did that for a deliberate purpose, to create a settler colony that could be controlled and maintained in this resource-rich region. Right? That's it. No, it didn't start before that. This is post-Balfour Declaration. No, it didn't start before that. Before that, under the Ottoman Empire, there was like 2% of the Palestinian population was Jewish, and they just lived. They lived there alongside the Muslims and Christians as equal citizens under the banner of the Ottoman Empire. So that's not... Wait, is it effing again? What? Zionism was a thing before British mandated Palestine. The British didn't start it? No. Zionism as an ideology had no fucking motion before the Balfour Declaration. Okay? Theodore Herzl went to the Ottoman Empire and asked to get the land known as Palestine at the time, and the Ottoman Empire refused. They said, fuck no, that's not going to happen. So you're wrong about that. Pre-Balfour Declaration and pre-Christian evangelical Zionism, this movement did not have any fucking weight to it whatsoever. And in spite of the idiots bring up jizya to say they weren't equal, yeah, I know, that's irrelevant. So basically, even before the Nakba, okay, while there was periods of struggle and revolts and riots against like the settler colonial occupation that was taking place, ultimately there were still a fuck ton of Jews that were living there that, you know, lived in villages side by side with Palestinians living there, okay, with the Muslims and Christians that were living there. So the the notion that this was always like an incredibly violent seizure of land is somewhat false, which is ironic because like a lot of Zionists actually use that as a counterexample to be like, well, this was peaceful, like we bought the land, blah blah blah, all this stuff. Like there's truth to that. There is truth to that. Okay, as a matter of fact, that peaceful relationship was utilized under Plan Dalit during the Nakba for a bunch of Arab villages, a bunch of Palestinian villages that weren't actually aware of the planned ethnic cleansing operations that were about to take place. You didn't blast off? No, I did. I did earlier. I've just fallen off, chatter. Anyway, here it is. It's pure racism to think that Jerusalem, the capital of the secular world, would not be multicultural as New York City and therefore the rest of Palestine as well. Oh no, for sure. Yeah, only 2 viewers. There were literally just Jewish Palestinians there, and some people either accidentally or unknowingly speak as though those are 2 contradicting things. Yeah, no, for sure. Zionism existed before the declaration, but was incredibly fringe before it. Even after, in 1922, the U.S. Jewish Labor Council voted unanimously to condemn Zionism as an ideology because they saw the writing on the wall. Yeah, no, they're like Zionism as a substitute, as like almost like a secular national religion, is a relatively new phenomena in the 3,000 years of Jewish history. It's so new. Like even in its inception, it wasn't as poppin'. It did not, like, most Jews did not fuck with that. As a matter of fact, ironically enough, most Jews still don't technically fuck with it in the sense that they just live in America. You know, they might like defend Israel every now and then, but ultimately, like, they're, you know, that's social conditioning and whatnot, but like clearly they're not abiding by the national project, because if they were, they would live in Israel, but they don't live in Israel. They live here because they're American. They're American Jews, you know, they're New York Jews, they're Florida Jews, they're American. That's why I don't even like the language of diaspora in general, because like after a certain point, if you have your roots set here in the United States of America for so many goddamn generations, like, you're fucking American, you know? What do you mean? Israel defenders and Zionists love using that language to be like, these are diaspora Jews, like as though they're just like separated from their fucking homeland of Israel. Like, get the fuck out of here, dude. This dude has been living in America for longer than Israel has even fucking existed. Okay? The fuck do you mean? Like, what do you mean? There's motherfuckers who have their roots here for a lot longer than Israel existed. Zionism existed along the same time as a lot of other Jewish forms of self-governance. We had leftist Bundism at the same time. It was competing with a ton of other ideologies and was never inherently going to succeed. It did so because of external factors like Balfour. And then, of course, obviously supercharged after the Holocaust, too. Like, those are the 2 major factors that played a role. I think the Holocaust probably played the most consequential factor, because then there were plenty of Jews that were genuinely considered stateless and had withstood incredible violence at that point. So that's it. After that point, it was over.
Defines their view of anti-Zionism in a way that allows for Jews to exist in a state of Israel, but that grants Palestinians rights. But you're seeing that as anti-Semitic. You know, people don't feel like they have the space to have a different view without being tagged with something that, as we have already established, is pretty serious.
Well, let's look, in fairness, I can appreciate that for some people, this idea is an abstraction, right? Oh, anti-Zionism, it means such and such to me. I get that. But let me tell you what anti-Zionism doesn't mean to me.
Dude, you know what's funny? He literally goes, here's what Zionism means to me, which is basically like something completely devoid of like the actual tangible impact of Zionism, which is the extermination, or at least like bare minimum ethnic cleansing and ethnic displacement of Palestinians. Okay, a refusal for the recognition of Palestinian humanity, Palestinian sovereignty, okay, Palestinian self-determination. But instead, he turns around and goes, and this is what I believe when someone says they're anti-Zionist. It's like, okay, so you get to set the terms, I guess. Like, you get to set the terms on what Zionism is on your own, whatever, like in the most favorable ways possible. Which, by the way, if you want to understand what Zionism is, look at the genocide in Gaza, because that is what Zionism is. Liberal, ultra-nationalist, doesn't matter. Ultimately, it is a fascist exterminationist ideology. And it is unfolding in real time. Like, we're seeing the consequences of unrestrained Zionism in Gaza. Gaza is Zionism through and through. So the notion that like Jonathan Greenblatt tries to speak out against that to make it seem as though Zionism is something different is to basically deny these atrocities, which is in a very clever way, he is actually avoiding talking about those atrocities because he can't do that. He can't talk about those atrocities and maintain this like progressive veneer as a quote unquote civil rights advocate.
But what it results in, it's a lunatic trying to burn down the governor's mansion with his family sleeping in it because of his, quote, position on Palestine. It is, again...
That's so funny that he makes it seem like that guy was like a... that guy was like a designated anti-Zionist. Bro, that dude literally thought the governor had kidnapped his daughters. Okay? That was the most like schizo dude you could point to. He doesn't want to say Elias, what was his name, Rodriguez, because that is an anti-Zionist that actually engaged in an act of violence against two people that work for the Israeli state, that work for the Israeli embassy, that work for the Israeli government. Okay, that is an actual act of violence that is anti-Zionist. Okay, you could just say that. Plenty of people think that that is completely fucked up and completely unacceptable. But instead, he has to just like make insane inferences. He just can't help himself. He has to be like, yeah, that guy who was that guy who literally was experiencing a fucking mental health crisis in broad daylight that told the cops that the governor of Pennsylvania was actually kidnapping his daughters. That guy was actually engaging in an act of anti-Zionist terrorism. Come on, dude.
Firebombing elderly people because you want to, quote, end all Zionists.
In talking to...
Wait, notice, oh shit. He didn't bring up the one instance. That's interesting. I think part of the reason why these guys like shy away from talking about that is because they worry about copycats. I think that's what it is. Especially because like that did not get the same like widespread condemnation that they were expecting. To clarify, he was not a schizo dude in the colloquial sense. Oh yeah. Yeah, he was literally a diagnosed schizophrenic off his medication. Yes. I'm not like saying, oh, that dude was schizo. Like he was literally diagnosed medically as someone who was schizophrenic, who was very clearly experiencing an episode of paranoid schizophrenia. He was hallucinating that the governor had kidnapped his daughters.
To people who are self-described anti-Zionists, starting with the idea that that is the way that they feel that everyone...
Here you go, bro, with the schizophrenic shit. Wait, what? Dog, what are you talking about? What do you want me to do to in order not to come across as like even remotely ableist? You want me to just like lie and act like the dude was not someone who was off his medication? Yes, that person was medically diagnosed with schizophrenia and he was off his medication. That's what his immediate family said. And you can kind of make that inference regardless if you were to listen, like we did, to his 911 phone call.
Rights in Israel and Palestine and Palestinian territories, to then extrapolate that they are somehow connected to murder, arson.
I am not connecting those people, Lulu.
No, but
that's kind of a slide.
He is. You are. What do you mean? You just did. What the fuck, bro? That's crazy. He just did. And then she goes, why are you connecting this to like the overwhelmingly peaceful like pro-Palestinian demonstrations and whatnot? And he's like, oh, I'm not doing that. You are. That's your whole job.
Starting with the idea that that is the way that they feel that everyone should have rights in Israel and Palestine and Palestinian territories, to then extrapolate that they are somehow connected to.
For the record, none of this is new. These tactics are not new, okay? If you are tapped in to right-wing reactionary sentiment, as I am. Hello? Wait, hold on. 1 second.
Murder, arson.
I am not connecting those people, Lulu.
No, but
that's kind of a sleight of hand and not
no,
fair.
but I'm really not trying to do a sleight of hand. I'm just trying to understand. You say that anti-Zionism leads to, that is the inevitable sort of end to this kind of belief.
So he's being disingenuous here, but I need you to understand something, okay? As someone who engages with fascist dialogue with regular frequency, okay? As someone who has to deal with right-wing reactionary, racist, white nationalist, white supremacist dialogue and counter that kind of propaganda, I have heard what Jonathan Greenblatt is doing here a million times over. I'll give you very quick examples, okay? Black Lives Matter starts. White racist people say, oh, all lives matter. Why not? When people say Black Lives Matter, I feel like you're saying white lives don't matter. That's your problem, dog. You just made that shit up, okay, to undermine BLM. That's number one. The example in that, the analog here is when people who want to support Israel, when Zionists say, oh, when people say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, that means you want to genocide the Jews. No, that's not what that means. You just made that up because you want to undermine advocacy for Palestinian emancipation. Okay? What Jonathan Greenblatt is doing here, connecting anti-Zionism to like two dudes that were off the rocker, okay, engaging in acts of violence, is no different than when, once again, right-wingers like at Fox News and all these other institutions actively were saying, oh, well, you know, look at how violent BLM is. Look at how violent BLM is. Like, no, dude, the movement was about tackling police brutality and the disproportionate targeting of black communities. Okay, that's what it was about. That's always what it's been about. You can't just like point to extreme examples to be like, no, BLM means like sniping cops, as they tried to do over and over again. Okay, that's exactly what he's doing here, tying an entire peaceful movement, an entire progressive movement to extreme examples like this is identical to the way that racist white people on fucking Fox News and other organizations like on the right have actively tried to do against BLM. Oh, they burned down cities. They sniped cops. Like, that's what it is. That's exactly the same thing that he's doing right here. Okay? But he's doing that as a person who is responsible for a quote unquote civil rights advocacy organization.
And so I think what people would say who might hold those beliefs is that is a sort of exaggeration and sleight of hand, because they don't want the annihilation of Jews.
They might not want that.
Like, this is what I'm saying. Like, dude. Zionism is quite literally unfolding in Gaza. It is real genocide. Okay? That's it. That is the overwhelming majority of what Zionism has brought, which is the 80 plus years of occupation, but then even more significantly now, like the full-blown extermination campaign that's taking place in Gaza. But God forbid you marry these two concepts. You can't do that. That's anti-Semitic. Anti-Zionism, on the other hand, is not a movement that says, hey, please stop this. The Palestinians are human beings. But instead, it's actually the ethnic cleansing of all Jews. On the one hand, in defense of Zionism, you're just like saying, please refuse to address the elephant in the fucking room, the real death and the real carnage and the real genocide that's taking place, while simultaneously turning around and like trying to tie this otherwise like anti-war, pro-peace movement, pro-humanity movement to extreme examples that do not represent the overwhelming majority. Like, how are we supposed to exist in this world where Israel's actions that are broadly supported, like routinely supported by virtually the entirety of the Jewish demographic of Israel, okay, that is somehow not representative of Israel at all. That's not representative of Zionism at all, even though it's like literally the most base understanding of Zionism. But anti-Zionism, on the other hand, is supposed to be this hypothetical advocacy of the extermination of all Jews. Do not look at what Israel's doing in Gaza. That's not representative. Please look to what I'm saying is what anti-Zionism actually is. Get the fuck out of here. It doesn't work. It does not work at all. This is ridiculous.
They might not understand what it means. They might not be steeped in the context. They might not be familiar with all of the history. But all I know is...
No, they're not familiar with your version of the history, the one that is ahistorical. The notion that this is a land without people for a people without land. There were people there. And the early Zionists knew that very well. And they knew what must be done with those people to implement this project. Bullshit.
What I see every day. All I know is the thousands and thousands of people who contact us because they have been, as I've described already, targeted and victimized, not because of what they believe, but because of who they are. And again, when you normalize language like, from the river to the sea, when you normalize language like globalize the Intifada, when you normalize language like, again, Israel is a Nazi state, this creates the conditions in which people feel not just compelled, but almost obligated, Lulu, to do horrible things. So I think ideas have consequences, and it starts with words. And what I am saying to you is, again, Zionism is one thing. The opposite of that is not some, well, look, let's have an ideal one state where everyone...
Yeah, we can't do that. We can't do that. Why can't we do that, Jonathan? Why? Just say it. Say it with your chest, because Palestinians are fucking dogs, right? They're just like violent dogs, right? Yeah, they just can't coexist with Jews, right? That's what you want to say. Just say it. Just fucking say it, dude. Why are you so afraid to say it? I'm sure you say it behind closed doors. You're basically implying it every single time. Is he defending Israel being a Nazi state? Yes, of course. Israel is a Nazi state. If you defend Israel, you are defending a Nazi state. And it's not just like a theoretical Nazi state. It's a Nazi state that's currently doing a live streamed Holocaust. So this is like knowing exactly what the Nazis were doing during the Holocaust and defending it actively. Okay. This is no different than Himmler, Goebbels, Hitler. It's the same shit. Those motherfuckers knew exactly what was going on in the concentration camps, and they were actively tasked with defending it.
I'm not talking about that. I'm focused here in America on the felt experience of Jewish people.
I'm sure.
Yeah. It's shameless and also insanely, intensely anti-Semitic, ironically enough, okay? It is intensely anti-Semitic to put the feelings of American Jews that you, by the way, have made up, okay? It doesn't even like correspond to reality. Jews are not monolithic, obviously. No group is. But you're basically saying like, I am the top Jew and all of the Jews in America are feeling really worried about the ways in which people are recognizing Israel's Nazi behavior. Okay? That's fucking crazy. You're literally associating all Jews in America with Israel's Nazi project. That is unimaginably anti-Semitic.
You saw my colleague Ezra Klein's recent piece on divisions within the Jewish community, because this is not just an active debate outside of the Jewish community. These definitely...
yeah, exactly. And it's also irrelevant. That's the other thing. It is so irrelevant. Like, not only is it anti-Semitic because you're basically fucking saying like, you're basically saying like, no, all Jews care about Israel doing a genocide, and like they get really scared when people say Israel's doing a genocide. Please don't, please don't let people say Israel's doing a genocide, even though it is, because you'll hurt the feelings of Jews. Not only is it untrue, but even if it was true, it still would be irrelevant. You know what I mean? Even if Jews were a monolithic force, and they're not, But even if they were, and they were all like fucking predisposed with like Israel doing a genocide, it still would be utterly irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. Do you fucking think that genocide is appropriate or not is the actual question here. Okay? That's it.
And how they're interpreted are also very vigorously debated within the Jewish community.
Absolutely.
And in that piece, he argues that the war in Gaza and Israel's actions over the past year there have broken the consensus around the central place Israel has for American Jews. And there was this one line in the piece that really struck me about how it's not whether Israel has the right to exist, it is whether Israel has the right to dominate. Israel does exist, right? But the question is, does Israel have the right to dominate, which is what has caused so much consternation about how exercises its right to exist.
In Gaza, for example, I have to weigh this. The fear that like I have to communicate with them off camera before I have them on to see like, are you sure? Like this is putting a target on your back technically. You know what I mean? That's not a consideration that anyone should ever have to fucking weigh on. This is a real situation. Because any Palestinian in the Gaza Strip could be subject to murder from an unaccountable, violent Nazi state at any given moment for any reason. And no one in the Western world gives a fuck. That is the reality. It's so insane. Okay? It's so incredibly insane that is what's going on. And yet we still talk about like what Jonathan Greenblatt has decided is the feeling of Jews overall. You know, we have to place that. We have to weigh that. Here is anti-racist ADL-CO laments rising intermarriage rates among Jews.
Is it your sense that Jewish people are getting complacent, that they're not engaging to degrees and levels we should be?
I have met a lot of October 8th Jews for whom the massacre on October 7th was a wake-up call. I've met a lot of people who feel much more galvanized, much more organized. But that will only be sustained if we offer them, ways to participate in a real and robust way in Jewish life.
Mm-hmm. And whose responsibility is that? In essence?
All of ours.
Yeah.
But this is why we need a revolution in our community on so many levels. So look, the reality is that intermarriage rates continue to go up. Assimilation continues apace.
This Nazi shit. What do you mean? It's just like, bro, this is what fucking white supremacists say, man. This is shit that white supremacists say. Okay? How ironic that after a fucking century of Jews are doing the great replacement to taint the pure white race, now you got a Jewish dude literally saying that about Jews. What he's describing here is quite literally what neo-Nazis say about race mixing, about miscegenation. That is literally what he is saying. Why is that appropriate? The real issue here is that many young American Jews hear that and they go, what the fuck? I don't give a shit. I'm going to marry whoever the fuck I want. What are you talking about? That's what he's worried about. That's what many Zionists are worried about. It's crazy to me. It is crazy.
And look, I fight anti-Semitism. That is my job.
Right.
But I worry a great deal about broader questions of Jewish identity, as I think we talked about over lunch.
Is it your sense that...
This is from August 8th, from yesterday. I'm going to say he said the 14 words but Jewish, and he can still masquerade as a civil rights organization leader.
Jewish people are getting complacent, that they're not...
This is why, like, there is a sense of, like, honest jealousy in the framing of other prominent fascists like Richard Spencer or even Tucker Carlson or that Visegrad guy when he literally talked to Jonathan Greenblatt being like, why can't white people do Israel shit that Israel's doing for the Jews? Like when those guys are saying like, oh, what the fuck? Like you're the leader of the ADL, which plays a formative role in like tackling our white version of what Israel is doing. You won't let me do it. And I suspect the ADL is going to move in that direction now. They've already fired all of the people that were tasked with like the real civil rights advocacy. They've already fucking fired those guys, even though they have more support, more financial support than ever before post October 7. They fired every single person that was tasked with like combating racism and all these other forms of civil rights advocacy. 40 and wearing a chain. Yikes. Wait, what? If you're reading this, you're gay. Is this guy talking about? Oh, he is talking about me. Did you see Jeff Nippert speak of the Palestinian bodybuilder? Yes, I did. I did, bruh, Nathan. I don't know. I didn't know there was an age limit to this sort of thing.
Language, like from the river to the sea. When you normalize language, like globalize the Intifada, when you normalize language, like, again, Israel is a Nazi state. Create the conditions in which people feel not just compelled, but almost obligated, Lulu, to do horrible things.
I'm Lulu Garcia Navarro, and this is The Interview. I covered the Middle East for a long time as a foreign correspondent, and I can safely say that this moment is a moment like no other in my memory. Here in the U.S., anti-Semitism and how it relates to criticism of Israel has become central to debates around free speech, immigration,
no one has a right to a student visa,
national security, and fundamentally what it means to feel safe and welcome in this country. One of the central figures in this debate is Jonathan Greenblatt, the head of the Anti-Defamation League, or ADL. Founded more than 100 years ago, the ADL's stated mission is to, quote, stop the defamation of the Jewish people and to secure justice and fair treatment to all. Under Greenblatt's decade-long tenure, the ADL has tracked a precipitous rise in anti-Semitic incidents across the country, which is why I wanted to talk to Jonathan Greenblatt about how he sees this moment. Thank you so much for joining the interview. I'm so glad you're here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Lily.
I want to start with a big question that I know you think about a lot, which is, what is the situation, in your estimation, for Jews in America right now?
I think this is a time of great concern for Jews all over the United States. You know, at ADL, we track anti-Semitism, we measure attitudes, and we also track incidents. And we've never really seen a time like this, at least not in recent memory. So on the one hand, elevated or intense anti-Semitic attitudes as a percent of the population have more than doubled in the last 5 years. And we also track incidents. What I can tell you is last year, 2024, was the worst year we had ever recorded in terms of acts of harassment, vandalism, and violence directed at Jewish people or Jewish institutions. That was the 5th time in the last 6 years that we've broken a new record. And if I look back over the 10 years since I became ADL CEO, the number's up 10x where it was when I started on the job.
That's why I wanted to have you here today, because you...
Yeah. I wonder if she'll ask directly in this interview, wait, hold up. I got to find this moment. Do we know exactly at what point she brings that up? I need to see this on video, because this is a transcription of the interview. God damn, you can't pull up the transcript for some reason. I don't know why.
Jews being...
Erupts extremist threats.
Transcript is in the description.
I don't want to belabor the point. I just think it's slightly different.
Oh,
what you're talking about, what actually happened on campuses, and the accusation of material support for terrorism. Those are slightly two different things.
So look, on March 5th, at the takeover of the Barnard Library right here in New York City, Quad, which is the SJP, they banned the SJP chapter at Columbia for its behavior. And the students immediately reconstituted it as Quad. That's what they call it. And those students literally... Because that's a legal definition, which means an intentional effort. And I don't have the dictionary in front of me.
I have it here.
But
it says...
intentional... Okay, what does it say?
It's a UN, right? We should say it's a legal definition. And it says, any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group, such as members of the group, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or part, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group.
Bro, that's literally, like, Israel looked at that and was like, bet. Okay? Israel was like, oh, I didn't Were you reading out the checklist of what we were supposed to do? Because it kind of seems like it's perfectly valid when we do it bar for bar, verbatim. What we're doing is kind of crazy that you, but Hamas. Like, what's the fucking reasonable, supposedly progressive defense of this? You got nothing. You just have but Hamas. That's all you got. All you can do is condom hummus, October 7, condom hummus. That's all you got. You got nothing else.
Well, so in fairness, I don't have that definition.
What? I was gonna, okay. Oh, no, you do that after. Do after, because you're gonna have to leave and come back anyway.
In front of me, right? And I haven't read it like you have before this. But what I'll simply say is that I don't believe the Israeli government is committing genocide. I don't think they're intentionally trying to destroy or annihilate a group of people. I do think this is a war that was started by Hamas. I do think Hamas has made the decision to black market and hoard the aid that comes in. The Hamas government has chosen to build tunnels below, not to create protective structures above.
But Hamas,
so
just as I thought. But Hamas, how fucking convenient, dude. Didn't realize that you got that ace under your sleeve, you know? Had no idea you were gonna hit the but Hamas trap card. Shocking. It's interesting because that's like it seems like that's the only fucking line of supposed defense that these guys have. Interesting.
Questions about who is really bringing the catastrophe to the Gazan people. But look, at the end of the
How is there any daylight between you and Benjamin Netanyahu? This is what it is. When Zionism is at its final project stage, okay, the final solution for the Palestinians, there is very little daylight between the liberal Zionists and the ultra Zionists, okay? Because ultimately, they are tasked with defending Israel. And if Israel is doing a genocide, you have one of two options. You either look at that and go, all my life, I've been deluded into thinking that this was actually something that was good. This was a project for good. This was Jewish self-determination. I was wrong. This is what it was always about. And I find this to be utterly unconscionable as a Jew, especially given the historic significance of genocide towards Jewish people in Jewish history. I'm out. You either do that, and many Jews have done that, and many more Jews are doing that every day, or you find yourself in this position where you're basically the same as Benjamin Netanyahu, the same as Itamar Ben-Gvir. That's it. That's it. You're either propping up the Israeli state, which is a Nazi state, and this is your job now. This is what you're tasked with doing. Okay? Or you have to become an anti-Zionist. It's that simple. Because genocide, unlike many other historic atrocities, unlike many other convoluted political events, genocide is as black and white as it's going to get. Genocide and chattel slavery are the two instances where, like, even historians will roundly say, this is black and white. It's the crime of all crimes. There's no fence sitting on this. There's no, like, liberal Zionist permission structure on this. I'm sorry if that offends your sensibilities. I'm sorry if you want to feel as though you want to continue defending the state of Israel and its nationalist Nazi project, its Holocaust, while being in the polite comforts of liberal society. But welcome to the other side. You know, for decades, the pro-Palestinian position was roundly condemned and criticized, pushed aside. There was a massive momentum for progressive except for Palestine in almost all progressive circles. Okay? So this notion now where you try to fucking you try to act as though you have anything to say, any defense of this position, while still maintaining some kind of like liberal veneer is gone. Okay? It's done. It's over. It's Jover.
For me, it's not about how we define these things. Again, we talked about this last time. Anti-Zionism is an interpretation. It's a fact. And the pain and hunger and tragedy in Gaza is a fact. And the deaths of civilians are a fact. And the status of the hostages is a fact. So the facts compel me to say, without any hesitation, this war needs to end. The hostages need to come home. The aid needs to flow in. And we need people on both sides to be able to live in some degree, some modicum of peace. That's what I want.
The reason I bring up the use of the word genocide, and we should also say that, Ehud Olmert, the former prime minister of Israel, is now calling Israel's actions war crimes, right? So again, use of these words.
Yeah, permission structure is expanding. You couldn't do that a year ago, okay? You can even fucking say ceasefire. People thought ceasefire was unconscionable, a bridge too far, anti-Semitic. Now, you got former Likud prime ministers saying it's a litany of war crimes. A couple months from now, maybe they'll arrive finally at the fucking position that Israel is committing a genocide. Who knows? But like, the point here is to bring as many people on board as quickly as possible and to create more and more pressure, as Rashida Tlaib talked about yesterday. It gave me a lot of confidence, and it made me happy to see that American politicians who have tremendous power in being able to stop Israel's genocide are actually responsive, or actually do have their feelings hurt by people showing up at their events. You know, their constituents showing up and being like, what the fuck are you doing? You need to be way more aggressive. What people are doing to Bernie Sanders, they should be doing a million times over to every single fucking Democrat and every single Republican. Hamas has been terrorizing Israel for generations and you support them. You fucking moron. Hamas hasn't even been around for generations. This is the problem. You don't know anything. You want to fucking defend Israel, and a big chunk of that requires you to not know the fucking history. It's that simple. That's it. What is this? Oh, new card? Okay, thanks. Yeah, you can take it. Hold on. Let me turn on the laptop cam real quick. All right, you can take it now.